I'm an architect, an inventor of a green technology building material that started way back, probably all the way back in England where I grew up. I was educated, graduated high school at 15, went to art school. When I left there as the top student, I was handed a job with the BBC as a set designer, and set design is panelized construction. If I look back at everything I'm doing now, I think it links back to the DNA of that. I did that for a year. I was offered a job in Canada. 2 weeks later, I emigrated. So I worked for a big retailer in Canada and built out probably over 5 million square feet of department stores, restaurants, and a few other things, all using wood. Moved to Vancouver, and I set up a restaurant design company and fabrication company, having designed many restaurants across Canada, I think 43. I put the two things that I knew best, set design and restaurant design, together. And I created a very unique company where I would approach a restaurateur who needed to renovate or remodel a restaurant. And instead of shutting down for 2 months, I had that 2 months to build the new interior like a movie set, which meant the restaurateur could visit his own restaurant inside my warehouse, and I could now install that restaurant in about 2 days. So the money he saved from not closing down and not having an income actually paid for the remodel, and it became very successful. That eventually took me into the US. I used to fly back and forth from Vancouver down to LA, where I eventually moved to. And as you do that, you fly over Washington and Oregon, and you see mountainsides stripped of trees, and I knew I was partly responsible for some of that. And I decided in 1984 to be an environmental architect. Nobody else was that I was aware of. And as I tell everyone, green was a color back then, not a movement. In the same year, in 1984, I took a Caribbean cruise out of Miami, and I decided I wanted to build a vacation home, but like I'd done with the restaurants, I would make it in California, stuff it in a container, ship it there. And I set some design rules for myself, and I designed a model, and it had to be green, or had to be environmentally friendly, I should say. That meant no wood, no gypsum board, no Portland cement, no mold or mildew, 200-mile-an-hour hurricane rated, bug-proof, fireproof, saltwater resistant. I realized, because I've never had a 2-week vacation, I had to build it in 1 week. I wanted to use local unskilled labor. This would be the day labor, the guys sitting on the wall at Home Depot. My friends that I talked to, other architects, all said to me, "This is impossible. You set the benchmark too high." And I love impossible. Eventually, I left Los Angeles, sold my company, and I moved with my 2 children to San Diego. And it was at this point, a couple of months into this, completely bored stiff. I thought I was going to take a 4-year break, and I couldn't. 2 months later, I pulled the model out of the box and decided at that point, I'm going to finish this. And I'm going to stick to my original design rules. It was very empowering. My garages turned into a lab. The cars got moved outside. Completed the initial R&D, including $2.5 million spent on code approvals. We released the product into the market in 2008, just in time for the recession. The timing could not have been worse. Somehow we struggled through that, mainly as a coatings application over the ICF industry. We had the world's first fire-rated, abuse-resistant finish, replacing gypsum board, that was designed to be flooded, burned, and all the other things that gypsum board could not do. In fact, the code compliance testing here in the US is based around the limitations of the material. So if you take 1 hour fire-rated gypsum board, it only lasts 16 minutes in a fire test. So they made the fire test 15 minutes. It was very easy for us to pass. I realized there were waste stream materials that I could tap into. And early experiments were exactly that. However, my patent attorney said to me, if your house contains toxic materials, you could have problems downstream where someone blames you for making their child sick. So at that point, 2008, even though the recession had started, we were the very first to remove anything that was toxic in the bag. So every single ingredient in the bag is actually edible. In the early days developing the material, I actually had to travel around the world to 5 different countries. That ultimately turned into the development of 2 specific coatings, a fire-rated version and a waterproof version. You can hear from the sound of this, this is ceramic hard. We're talking 3,500 PSI exterior, 9,000 psi interior. So this is an abuse-resistant finish. Later, this turned into a ballistic coating. Here we have a live fire testing of a ballistic rated coating, 1 inch thick over hollow block. We have official NIJ level 3 and NIJ level 4 testing from HP White Labs in Maryland. They're a government accredited testing agency for ballistic finishes. In this case, we put 1 inch over dry stacked hollow block. They're not even mortared together. We shot 5 times on this side, 7 times on the back side. We have no penetrations through the wall. We can take virtually any wall in anyone's house and turn it into a ballistic rated wall, creating a safe room. Obviously ideal if you're broken into, it's a place to hide, but more importantly, it's a storm-resistant enclosure that you've just put yourself in inside your home. We now have 6 homes in the Caribbean that have survived Hurricane Joaquin, Matthew, Maria, and Irma with no damage. Everything around it got flattened. If it was made out of wood, it disintegrated, and we're still there. The tipping point for us was really this year, in February of this year. We knew that Miami-Dade County code approval is the toughest in the world, designed specifically for Florida because of being hit regularly by hurricanes. When the agency that did the testing saw the samples and the thinness of the coatings, basically that, they laughed. They said, there's no way this is going to pass the test. We doubled every single pass limit that they put on each of the tests, multiple tests. We had the governor of Florida fly out last year, Governor Rick Scott, now Senator Scott. He came out and said, we need you in Florida. The Dade County tests that we passed stopped at 245 miles per hour because that was the limit of their machinery. The panel didn't fail. So we know we can actually go beyond that wind speed. Part of the Dade County testing is obviously wind speed for hurricanes, but it's also seismic. The panels are shaken until they break, and they didn't break. The concrete floor in the testing agency gave up before the panel did. More recently, with fires in California, we proved on a home on top of a hill. This is an ICF home without coatings on it. That's the only home left standing in that whole area. There's aerial photographs of it completely devastated around it. The whole hillside is black. Nothing happened to the house. The system's really designed around not just hurricanes, not just seismic, but fires, floods. It was designed to be submerged in water for up to 30 days with no damage at all. It would be possible to go in the house with a hose pipe, wash the mud off the walls, open it up, dry it out, and move back in again. Absolutely impossible to do with a wood-framed house or any home with gypsum board in it. There's an ASTM test. It's called Accelerated Weathering Test, and it's performed in a dishwasher. It has to be a Maytag dishwasher. What happens in a dishwasher is you've got wind-driven rain as it throws the water at the samples. You've got extreme humidity as the heater element comes on and basically boils off the water. And then you've got extreme dry heat as all the moisture is exhausted out of the dishwasher. So the process that any sample that goes through there is extremely destructive. The synthetic stuccos that are in the market, which are all originally German technology, came over in the 60s. They are basically Portland cement, sand, and latex polymers. If they add color to it, they change the chemistry fractional, so it really doesn't make much difference. The problem is the Portland cement not being waterproof allows the moisture to go into the coating. Then the steam now expands rapidly and the water can't get out quick enough. So the heat has now softened the latex polymers. If you know anything about chewing gum, it's a latex polymer. You can blow bubbles with it. So when you chew on a piece of gum, you've got a warm, wet environment in your mouth now. It's soft enough to blow bubbles. So that's exactly what's going on inside the dishwasher. So in this case, this went in very smooth, and now you can see it's essentially destroyed. It's coming apart. In 2 cycles, 25% of the materials disappeared. In 3 cycles, about 35% has disappeared. And in 5 cycles here, the top 1/8 of an inch has gone completely. So this is our stucco replacement. This has been in the dishwasher 100 cycles. Nothing's happened to it. The foam on the back is beginning to shrink. This was made with steam in the first place. The bond to the foam remains as intact as it did before it went in the dishwasher. After it went through 100 cycles, extremely destructive, we then froze it in a freeze-thaw test. It's actually minus 30°C. It's soaked underwater for 8 hours. It's frozen for 24 hours. You bring it out, you weigh it, you inspect it, put it back in the water. That's 1 cycle. U.S. code calls for 10 cycles. So this poor little sample here did 100 in the dishwasher and 40 freeze-thaw cycles. There's nothing like this in the world. The German company that manufactures this, when they saw this, they said this has to be a minimum of 10 years worth of weatherability. When we showed them this, after 100 cycles, 100 times 10, we'd look silly if we said this is a 1,000-year stucco, but it could very well be. We have a building system that absolutely changes the way we build in the U.S. and globally. We've got interest from all over the world to put factories in different countries. There's been a huge housing shortage. Pretty much every country in the world cannot meet the housing needs. Population is growing faster than the construction industries. And we have a global solution for safe and affordable and healthy housing. There's no solution in the market today that checks all the boxes for strength, sustainability, safety in extreme climates, cost-effective against stick-built construction, energy efficiency, 50 to 60% savings, proven, low-cost labor to construct the homes, unskilled labor, speed of construction. We're a fraction of what it normally takes. What would be 6 months becomes 6 weeks. The country's spending hundreds of billions annually because of ever-increasing natural disasters. The insurance industry has now started not insuring wood frame structures. We've spent millions to develop a solution, keeping to the original rules that I set for myself. Our building system is designed to weather any storm.